Hi everybody, welcome to the Finance This Property That podcast. My name is Dion Fernandes and I am a mortgage planner and finance professional. My goal is to empower financial legacies for generations, and I look to do this by using my over 13 years experience in finance and having special guest speakers like financial planners, accountants, buyer's agents, family lawyers who are experts in their field to provide knowledge and free education. And without further ado, let's get into our episode today. Hey everyone, welcome today to this week's episode of Finance This Property That. Today, very special guest from Hugo Alexander Properties, Harry Imam. Thank you for joining us today, Harry.
Thank you, Dan. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. Now, I've been working with Harry for like last 6-7 months. We work together in a very unique type of product called Rooming House, and today I thought I'd get you on here and let's talk about it. I think my staff are getting very sick of me going, "Oh, it's another rooming. I think it's a running joke in the office at the moment because we are doing quite a few. And it's a popular product. So great to have you on here. We'll talk about obviously yourself. What is a rooming house? Why are they different? And bust a few myths because I think you can demystify a couple of things that the same questions, right? Cool. All right. So before we get started, Harry, tell us a little bit about you, what your background is, and how have you got to where you are right now?
Yeah. I've been in property sales for a very long time. I've been in property my whole life. I started out in the trade side and eventually became an architect. Worked for a little bit in that space, a bit of project management, and just found that my natural space was dealing with clients, and so I've forgone a lot of that consultancy and I'm predominantly sales. So we do a lot of work with, at the moment, assets that have leases. So rooming houses are excellent. Commercial properties have their benefits. But what got us into rooming is it's a sort of a quasi-residential product. So it's accessible. Its price point is really great. They're not complicated to build. And they've become easier and easier to get certified and approved over time. So
and we'll get into more of that as we go along. We can't give all the secrets right at the beginning, right?
True,
You've got to keep everyone. So you've got a few. You got a young. I think every time I ring you, there's someone crying in the background.
Yeah,
little girl. Yeah. How old?
She's one. She just turned one a couple of weeks ago. So Georgia's fantastic. A lot of fun, heaps of energy. Keeps us up at night, and she's babies are really great.
Yeah. I know, mate. Mine's 11, so still a baby, but like almost 21, right? And you love your cars, right?
Cars are a lot of fun. I got a new car recently. It's one of the GDS M3s. A lot of fun. It's a manual V8. So it's something I really enjoy. Something
to do outside of property, right? Like you've got to have some sort of downtime. From property and kids.
True. I've always liked sort of V8s. I've had a few different ones from Chevys to Fords and HSVs and things.
Cool.
And this is the first Euro one that I've had. So it's a little bit more interesting. It's it's a smaller, tighter body. Handles beautifully. So
yes, it sounds fast. Adam, the director of Emerge Finance, had one of those cars as well. Went very fast. I sat in it, and every time you walked in, you're like, "Wow!"
Yeah, like V8s are different from turbos. Turbos have a totally different sound, and V8s are a bit more sort of raw and aggressive sounding. They're fun. Oh, look, I'd love to go for a drive sometime.
Oh, yeah. Sure. I'm not really a car guy. So, like, when you're talking about V8s and stuff, I'm like, cool, I just drive a Tesla. You know,
they're fun.
It's fun. It is fun. They're faster than what you expect. And I'm like, oh, geez, okay. But, saves me a bit of money. So, I like it.
Mine's the opposite. It sees every petrol station. So it's not a daily driver. It would use too much petrol to be a daily driver.
Fair enough. All right, cool. Hey, look, so you were just touching base on a little bit about rooming house and why rooming house, but let's just break it down, right?
Okay.
Like, in essence, let's just get into what is a rooming house.
Sure.
Right? Like, just layman's terms, tell us.
In simple terms, it's a house, but it has the privilege of being able to lease room by room. And when they first started, it evolved from a boarding house, which is a long sort of a building that had multiple rooms that shared kitchens and bathrooms and laundries and car parks.
Yep.
And those original bedsitters and boarding houses were very limited in their functionality. You literally just had a room. Maybe you had a locker and you had nothing else but just a place to sleep. So they were really affordable for people that were on the lower end of their earnings.
Yep.
In time, these things have evolved. So, we've seen in the 60s and 70s a lot of unit buildings. And so units came along, which were sort of micro versions of houses. And something in between a unit and a boarding house room is what is provided in a rooming house. So right now they're very sophisticated. They look like a house from the outside, and inside each room you have all the functions of a unit. You have the bedroom, the lounge room, the ensuite. You have a little courtyard or a balcony, depending if it's high set or low set. You have a place to park your car. So you get all the functionality of living in a unit, and you don't have to share anything other than the laundry. So it has a communal kitchen in case all the residents want to sort of get together and cook a roast or something. It has a communal laundry, so you don't have to bring your own laundry machine in. And inside the room, it's got everything you need. It's got the fridge, the microwave. It's got a cooktop, pots and pans and saucers and cutlery. The bed's ready there. You've got a little bedside table and lamp and a coffee table and a TV hung on the wall. It's really just like stepping into a fully furnished apartment.
Yep.
So you just go shopping at the local supermarket, get your food, bring your clothes along, and you can just live comfortably. And what's also great about them is they tend to be rented with the bills included. So you literally do not have to call up to get the power and water and internet connected. Just you walk in, everything's on, and some of the inner city ones, even you've got the Netflix just right there. So it's a very convenient service where everything's covered, and it's the easiest way to rent, and they're very affordable as well.
Yeah, well, that's a really great explanation. So I like the idea because, when you talk about boarding houses, you think uni students or student accommodation. That's where automatically financiers think, right?
Yeah.
Now it's really like some of these properties that we're doing, they're stunning.
There's a range.
Really,
There's some that are very high end.
Yep.
And there are some that are more basic.
Yep.
Look, like in anything, there are products that suit people with more lavish tastes, and there are products that are more basic. So if you want something, like some of the biggest ones are 60, 70 square metres, which is the size of an old 3-bedroom Queenslander, just for the tenancy. And some of them are 35 square metres, which is very comfortable. So it depends what you need and how much you're prepared to pay for rent.
Yes.
And where you want to go. So in the inner city, you're going to have some great options that are really big and exciting. And in standard working class blue collar suburbs, there's just more of the basic stuff. And
they're always located. So the ones that I've financed through for various clients, they're always located quite close to public transport. And it's all very accessible, right? Because it's one person living there.
They can be, but that's also one of the misconceptions of them. So unit buildings and townhouses typically have to be in a low medium density to medium density zone, which means they have excellent proximity to train, bus and main road and retail complexes. Rooming houses are different. They typically can't be in those zones. They have to be in a low density zone. So sometimes you're lucky that you're in the cusp of a low to low medium and you're very close.
I think most of my clients have been,
So the mindset has always been put them close to rail, put them close to main roads, put them close to shops. But they were designed with conjunction builders and council as a product to be in the low density zone. It's important that they're in that low density zone because they benefit from lower outgoings. So if you have a house in a low density zone, your urban utilities, your council rates, your insurances, they're all lower than if you're in a more sort of dense zone. So as you get closer to industrial and commercial zones, main roads, shops, whatnot, rail lines, you start paying higher fees for the privilege of being there. And so rooming houses benefit from having those low outgoings. And also, it's the only type of multi-residential that's in a suburban setting, truly in a suburban setting, not in a main road or
Yeah, yeah, and I've found that that's quite attractive when you're
That's the
you're
real
buying
appeal.
Yeah, it
'Cause
is the real appeal.
How hard is it to find an apartment in a very quiet setting? Because they tend to be in those crossroads through suburbs that are somewhat quiet, but they're really a bit noisier you won't really find them tucked into the real heart of the suburb.
Yep, cool. Yeah, no, that's good. That's a really good understanding, and you know, like there's a lot more we could talk about. But let's get into a little bit about the differences between a standard. Let's go 5 bed for five bed, right? Like so, you got your standard 5 bedder versus your standard rooming house, which is it's still technically 5 bedroom,
Yes.
a 5 bedroom house.
Yep.
So let's look at a couple of the differences, right? Firstly, let's cut the elephant in the room, right? The rental income, because that's what everyone wants to know. What the rental income is. Average 5 bedder, like you're in the real estate game. Average 5 bedder, let's say in Wynnum, what would that probably rent for, roughly?
Oh, it depends on the condition and the size because you've got houses from 300 to 600 square meters. So the range would be anywhere from, I'm guessing, a relatively contemporary house from somewhere between 1,000 and 1,400 a week for a decent house. And if it's bigger and really new and has some really fancy bells and whistles like pools and like maybe 3 living rooms and whatnot, it could go all the way approaching 2,000. Depending on street, depending on location, depending on access to cultural amenities. So that's a big range. But generally, if you're renting in Brisbane, a nice house with 5 bedroom for a big family, you'd be budgeting 1,400. You can spend more, you can spend less.
But that's one family, like that's one
family.
Cool.
And you're not limited to how many people you can put in there, but the average family is less than 5 people. And as a landlord, that's what you'd see. But then you pay all your outgoings, and so 1,000 is 50K or roughly, 1,400 might be 65K. You pull your outgoings back, and your net earnings are maybe 15, 16K less. Yeah.
Cool. So then we've got our rooming house. So rooming house like unit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Average rental income, I think we're sitting.
They range from 20 to 25,000 per room. So you can do about 100 to maybe about 120 depending on suburb. But on average, about 110 is a pretty magic number. Most of them hit about 420 a week for a room. If you have a bigger lot of land and you have car parking, you can probably charge another $10 to $20 per bay. They're not garaged, so it's really low maintenance. It's a concrete slab that you can high pressure hose every couple of years. So 420 by 5 is 2,000 and like 100. It's a lot of money.
Usually I think the average that I'm seeing around is like with a couple of the more recent rental appraisals on the newer ones, they're about 2,050 to 2,150. Again, that actually depends on the car parks that are available.
True.
So I think that was the biggest difference. The rooms are standard, and then you just add on extras for the car park, which ends up, I think the most recent one was 2,145. The one we did in Everton Park. So that's
a very solid rental. If they're mostly built on 400 square meters, if they're low set. If they're high set, they can be on smaller blocks. We've had them as small as 250. The general benefit of having a bigger lot, like maybe 500 square meters, or a site that's just not quite big enough to subdivide, means that you can have bigger courtyards, bigger rooms, and they're the ones that'll generate 420 plus, maybe even 450. And the land's going to be more expensive. Construction's going to be a bit more expensive for a slightly bigger house. But then the smallest compact ones, those are 200 square meter homes. And they produce like a solid 400 to 420 a week each room.
And you mentioned just before the expenses. So what are and how a lot of the expenses already inbuilt, like the internet, the power, it's all that. So so you've got the standard. So there's power. You've got your council rates. Which council rates can't control.
Everyone pays them.
Everyone pays them. Electricity. Who pays the water?
The landlord, to make it really easy, we just charge the tenants. Like every property manager is a bit different. There's about 5 property managers that are like us, just do it in a really simple way, where power, water and internet and the rent and the furniture are all in one fee. So the tenant just comes in as just one thing. And and that way the landlord pays their outgoings are the power, water, and internet that are a little bit variable.
Yeah.
Then you've got urban utilities, and you've got your council rates and insurance.
Yep.
Yeah. Then there's property management fees.
Yep.
So they're the outgoings for the property.
Yep.
Generally, they're designed with minimal, if no, garden to maintain.
Yes.
So the courtyards don't have gardens. They're concreted, paved, or they just have a mix of paving, concrete, and just maybe some stone infill, just to make them neat and clean. They don't have any gardening for the tenant to fuss about.
Yep.
Same thing with the front. There's a bit of decorative garden, but it is indigenous, slow growth stuff that really doesn't need maintenance.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the whole reason you're going in there anyway, is to have a low maintenance lifestyle. All right. Yeah, cool. So you've just touched on the management side of things. Now, I would assume, so I just want to just elaborate. You just said management fees and stuff like that, right? But I want to just elaborate. These properties are a little bit different to your standard property, isn't it? Like
a little
from the
bit.
management
side of things. Do you just want to, there's a couple of key differences.
Sure.
Just run through those.
There's three core differences between a standard dwelling house and a rooming house. They have fire egress, so they'll have a plan that shares with tenants how to escape in the case of a fire. They have emergency lighting, and they have a shared communal kitchen and laundry. Those are the three critical things that are identified as a rooming house. The fact that it has rooms that are purpose-built to be as comfortable and as high rental as possible, that's incidental. You technically don't have to have a bathroom in every one. You don't have to have a kitchenette in every one. You don't have to have a balcony in every one. And the early ones didn't. The early ones shared bathrooms and shared kitchens, and they've evolved. But as long as it has those three things, it turns from a Class 1A, which is a dwelling house, to a Class 1B, which is a rooming house. So a rooming house is a limited boarding house. It's a modern form of the boarding house. Those three functions provide the safety for the tenants and the communal functions like the kitchen and laundry that make it a rooming house.
Yeah. Cool. And how does the property management side of
So
things
from
work?
the property management side, there's a little bit of compliance with fire.
Yes.
And then there's obviously you've got to keep the pests in check. So that's pretty standard for most properties, especially timber ones. There's going to have to be entry condition reports on the property to make sure the room and the chattels, which is fridge, microwaves, all the equipment, bed, all that's in decent condition. The property managers also have to keep very good relations with the tenants, because if they break lease, we want to get it advertised and make sure there's no shortfall in the rent. Yep. So a very good property manager will know when a tenant is intending on leaving.
Yep.
Like they stay longer than you think. They stay 2.5 to 3 years.
Yep.
But from time to time, you'll get a tenant that forms a relationship, decides they want to move into a place with a partner. Maybe they decide they've saved up enough to buy their own unit or house.
But that's like any rental property.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
You're never guaranteed like they're going to stay for. If you get the golden goose that stays there for 10 years plus, like that's great.
It's a double-edged sword, because
Yeah.
the long-term tenant is good and it's bad, because lessors tend to get what's the term? They form good relationships with those,
and they just don't.
Then they're not as hard on charging the market rent.
Correct.
So we find a lot of landlords that we gain business from that have got a tenant from 10, 12 years. They're reluctant to charge the market rent because they really have a good relationship with them. They're emotionally attached to them. Whereas if it's just regular tenants that they swap out every 2 to 3 years, and then you look at what all the comps that are charging for rent, it's very straightforward just to say they're charging that, we'll charge that too.
Yeah. Take the emotion out of it.
Yeah.
So I want to just debunk a couple of myths with you just really quickly. The one I'm getting that comes back to me is, what about, isn't there going to be an oversaturation of them? Because they think I go, mate, they're not high-rise buildings, right? They're not actually stuck in the middle of the center of the city. So tell me a little bit, you must have heard that come through.
All the time. There are many of them, not as many as you'd think. But if you see 2 or 3 in a row on a street, it gives the impression that there are a lot of them. There's less than about 800 from what we know. There may be some more, because that's the ones we've identified as approved.
Yeah, the ones that probably have a house and they've extended it and then repurposed it to be
as far as converted ones. they're sort of off our radar.
Yeah.
Because a lot of those happen even off the radar with the council. They should be certified properly.
Yeah.
But we don't really know about too many of those. Our core business is really new ones.
Yep.
And if you are going to buy a converted one, you really want to make sure it's certified properly.
Yeah,
Because
it's important.
there's the last thing you want to do is buy a property that the council would deem not habitable. That's going to be a world.
But also the finance side of things.
Well, yeah, the
you
lender's
can't-
not going to be happy with it.
Like,
Yeah.
Forget about
Yeah.
well, you're not even going to get it approved, so you're not even going to get it buy it. You get to buy it. So no, the oversaturation is pretty much a myth, really. Like it just looks like it is, but it's not.
No one ever asks the question, if you're going to buy a unit building to put a tenant in, are there too many units? Or if you're going to buy a house, are there too many houses? There's a very small number of rooming houses. About 30% of our population from census are single, and from what we know, about 85% of them rent. So the top 15% are fortunate to have the position to buy.
Yep.
But that 85% rent, and there's not enough for even maybe 3% of them to have a rooming house room. The rest of them, if they can afford it, they go into a unit, and then most of the others are either living at home or in share housing.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of share housing because that's most of the building stock. And that's been a way of getting high rent from a standard house.
Yeah.
But it comes with its costs because the house bears a lot of wear and tear with extra people in it.
Yeah, well, that makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah, no, cool. I think the other one I've also heard is, well, what if council change the laws?
Well, if they do, that's fine. But then the people who are building the new ones, they have to comply with those new laws.
Yep.
In the same way, if you have a house that was built in 1960 and it's not compliant with today's building code by any mean, but no one can go and force you to make it comply. It is the way it is. And if you build a rooming house today in 2024 and it's granted a building approval and certified today, if the rules change in the future and energy efficiency is different, the number of tenants is different, fire rules are different, those new ones will be different. To some extent, we try to future-proof the buildings that we do now, as much as you can predict. But those sorts of new rules can't be grandfathered in. Yeah. So that's the benefit in property in general. Commercial's a little bit different, but the residential, you have that assurance that if it's okay when you did it, as long as you keep operating it and making sure it's safe, then you keep getting to play.
Yep, perfect. That's it. That's a great answer. And I think, one that we can really go back on, if clients say to me and go, oh, well, actually, when this podcast drops, we'll probably get a reel or something like that about it cut up just so that we can just refer clients back through them. But look, we could go on for a while, right? Because there's so much stuff we can unpack. I'll actually be doing a solo podcast around finance of how to finance these because I literally do all that, and it's not as easy as people actually think it is. Well, it is, but
Well, for you, I wouldn't be able to do the finance.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't be able to find the property. So look, you have what I do like about the way we work, and I say this to every client is. We work very independently of each other, but we work very collaboratively as well, which is what I like. And this is why I like to work with people like yourself. And the biggest thing is there's no, you don't pay me, I don't pay you or anything. We're just there to help clients grow wealth. And my vision is to empower financial legacies for generations. And this is one of the ways we can increase wealth, grow wealth, and build that generational
Definitely.
wealth.
I mean, where else do you get the opportunity to replace your income with a single asset? Once these things are paid down, they're over $100,000, and that's a lot of money.
And especially a lot of my clients are thinking about buying an SMSF. So if we get some established new ones in SMSF, bam, they're done. Yes, I know we can build them in SMSF, but a lot of people aren't in that position to do that because it is quite a significant cost more. But and there's so many options. But it's all we have time for today, but I'd really, before we do go, do have to mention that the information on this podcast is very general in nature. It doesn't take into consideration your personal circumstances. If you want to know more about rooming house or where to buy one or what's available, straight to Harry. If you want to know how to finance it, come to me. If you need accounting, financial planning advice, I'll be able to direct you to that professional that will be able to answer those needs. But before I head off, Harry, you get to plug your business, right? So how does someone get a hold of you if they want to have a chat?
Look, I'm available on my mobile phone most days. We have websites and social media and LinkedIn. It's pretty easy to find us.
Is that hugoalexander.com.au?
Oh, yeah, they can find me through that way. But if they just type Harry Imam, or if you just go on realestate.com.au, we always have a lot of listings of rooming houses.
Yep.
Click on one, have a look at it. We'll send you a packet of information about them. But we're visible from social. We've got a new website that goes through hundreds of frequently asked questions, information in a more general and consultative way, because most information is from builders. So it's very skewed towards getting you to build. Ours is just advice, whether you want to build or buy.
Yeah, because building may not suit everyone and buying may not suit
That's
everyone.
true. That's true. It's a very different thing. And maybe in a future podcast we could go over the differences.
Definitely. No, we will. Yeah, this is just one of the, we'll get you back.
Yeah.
We'll talk more.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for that. So everyone, again, like we don't advertise, don't pay for advertising. It's really, really simple. If you found this valuable, very simple, jump on the Instagram or the socials, Hugo Alexander or realestate.com, go find Harry. Follow the podcast, Finances Property That on Instagram, Facebook. Follow myself, Dion Finance Specialist on Instagram, Facebook, and I'm also on LinkedIn. Very, very easy to find. It's free, it doesn't cost you anything, and it is part of education. But until next time, see you all in the next episode.
Thanks, Dion.
As always, the information on the show is very general in nature. If you'd like to speak more about your current situation, you can contact me using the details below. Thank you for listening.